In this video, we'll create our very own iterators. So in the first example, I will show you how Python converts an iterable into an iterator. So for that, first we will create one list. So I will give that one a name called myList, and I will create a list over here. So I will call the list inbuilt method. Then I will take a range that will start from, let's say, from 1 to 11. Now, if you check the inbuilt or associated functions that are present using myList, so I can use a dir function, and you can see we are having this list of functions that are being associated with myList. And here you can find dunder iter. So whenever with any object, if we are having dunder iter, this means it's an iterable. Okay, but we don't see any function that's called dunder next, so it is not an iterator. So when it's an iterable, so we can loop over it. So to extract the elements that are present inside a list, we can use looping or any loop. So in this case we have used for loop, so I will use my list, then I will print the data that is present inside the list. Okay, so till now my list, it's an iterable, it's not an iterator. So to convert a list into an iterator, we will call dunder iter. So I will create one more object. Let's say I give my iterator equal to my list. Now here I will call dunder iter. Okay, now once I call it, the object that is returned by calling dunder iter, it's an iterator. How we can prove it? By calling the dir function. Now if I call the dir method and I pass the argument that is my iter, you can see the return type is I will type, so you can see the return type is iterator. So this is how Python converts an iterable into an iterator. Now one specialty of iterator is that we can use any loop, or we can use the next inbuilt method to extract the data that are present in a iterator. So if I use next over here, then it will give us the first element that is present inside my iterator. But I cannot use the next method on my list because it doesn't have that next dunder. We can use for loop on any iterator. So for I in my iterator, now if I use print, you can see it returns all the element. This is because an iterator has both the dunders, that is iter and next. To check that, we can use dir method, and if I pass my iter, the associated functions that are present, it has both iter and it has next. But in the previous case with our list, we have only iter but we don't have the next. To use a loop, it is compulsory to have dunder iter. So now we will move to our second example where I will create completely new iterator from scratch. Now to build that, we should have a class, and that class will take two arguments, that is a starting point and the ending point. Now this concept comes from this range where it starts from one point and it finishes at another point. Every class starts with a class keyword, then I will give a class name called my iterator. Then I will define init, and it will take three parameters, that is first will be self, the second one will be start, and the last one will be end. Now I will initialize it, self dot start equal to start and self dot end equal to end. So this is our initialization part done. Now define the next dunder. Because it's an iterator, it is compulsory to have next dunder. So I will pass the self keyword here. Now the logic is that if the starting point is less than the ending point, then we will return the current value, and I will increase the starting point by 1. To implement that logic, so I will give a if phrase here. If start less than self dot end, if it is true, then I will assign the value of start into a temporary variable. So self dot start, then I will increase the value of start. So self dot start dot, now I will return the temporary variable. Logic for next dunder is done. In the else section, we will have if it has exhausted all the elements that are present inside an iterator, it will raise and stop iteration. So in this way our class is ready to go. So once this class is ready to go, create one object that is x iterator. I have given my class name as my iterator, and I will pass a starting point and I will pass an ending point. So once this is done, I can use the next method and I will call the object, means I will pass the object as the argument. Now if everything goes fine, the first output that we will see, that will be the value 2, because that is the starting point. And you can see we have got the starting point, that is 2. Now I can print this one multiple times so that it will give us one after another elements that are present inside the iterator. So it has reached up to 7. Now if I copy and paste it once more, then somewhere after executing around 4 next function, it will raise a stop iteration, okay, because it has exhausted all the elements that are present inside an iterator. Now once this is done, can we use a for loop over here? Let's see. I guess we cannot use because it doesn't have dunder iter. So to check the pattern, I will use a for loop for I in x iterator. Then I will use print over here, and as it has exhausted all the elements, I will reinitialize it to my object once more. So it is not iterable. Yes, it is not iterable because it doesn't have the dunder iter. Now to make it iterable, we can define iter dunder, and I will pass the self keyword and I will return self. This much. This is enough to make our class iterable. So it is now an iterator. Now if I use a for loop over here, it will work. Yes, it is working. It can iterate using a for loop because it has dunder iter inside the class definition. Now this takes us to the end of our video. We shall meet in our next video.